Hi there, it's great to be here with my friend Lee Johnston, head coach at Bristol City. Hi there, Lee, how are you?
Very good, thank you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very good, up here in the sunny Highlands.
Yeah, the best air up there, mate. You're looking as fresh-faced as always.
I know. How's life in Bristol?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Obviously, difficult circumstances we find ourselves in as humans, really, in terms of COVID. But at the same time, I think you've got to take the opportunity to reflect. Do you know what I mean? To maybe reassess. For me, I've been sort of 9 years now on that hamster wheel of trying to win every week and every minute of every day. And it's been nice just to be present with the family, which has been nice. And like I say, to reflect, reassess, and hopefully come out a better person, a better coach.
Yeah. And as you said there, it's for us all, isn't it? It's using this time to the best and that time to reflect, especially in the area, in the job you do. It's 24/7 thinking all the time, and even when you're away from the park, and as you say, it's a hamster wheel, isn't it? It's just a hamster wheel. I remember chatting with you, when we were on the pro license, and you were very clear about, I think, very clear about going on this coaching journey and this managing journey, quite very early on. Where do you think that came from, and who was, in your playing career, who's the coaches that influenced you in that?
I think, obviously, the natural first port of call would be my dad.
Yeah.
My father was a coach and had been a manager and actually been involved in football ever since I was born. So I think you naturally get that thirst for learning, that hunger for football, just through like enjoying play with your dad and watching his games and being invested, if you like, as a family in the career.
Yeah,
I think originally I started out very, very early in my decision-making process at 24, and I really sort of sat down and I actually wrote a plan. And the problem I had really in football at that point was I also played for my dad.
right.
So I had to be I was very conscious to make my own contacts away from my dad. So that was a big part of the next sort of 6-7 years for me, really, which was try and earn respect of top people that actually I respected and that had good values and similar morals and the way we would look at football. And that was a really interesting process, because what it allowed me to do was have an armory of top sort of experienced professionals, if you like, as mentors, and able to call on them for advice whenever I needed to. It was completely unrelated to my dad. And I think that really stood me in good stead, if you like, to be able to break away into my coaching journey. Which started at 24, taking my level 2 in England, and then just as many hours as I possibly could, whether it be taking the women's team, coaching young players, coaching even like senior players with me, doing one-on-ones. And I think the coaching hours for any coach has to be the staple point of improving, because there's so much to it.
I think, we'll come back maybe about to how you developed that network yourself and when you were playing. And that is a very, we talk in business as well as in football, you work on your trade, and then, but you take the helicopter view and you're looking at a longer term view, and you did that, incredibly there. And, what I was thinking about when you were speaking as well is there in modern society, and I see it now, we're always looking for the hacks, isn't it? Is there a quicker way to be a great coach? Is there a quicker way to be... And you said you were quite focused quite early on to put in the hours then, were you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I say, I do have a natural thirst for learning. And once you decide and determine, right, I'm focused on that particular outcome, it can only improve you. Don't forget, I was still playing as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
31, so I used to love it. I mean, while most guys at Bristol City were on the international windows or were on holiday, I was travelling all over the world, looking at various football clubs and watching the way the coaches work and the way the staff work, doing case studies, obviously taking my pro licence and my A licence in Scotland as well. And I really used to enjoy that. And I always felt I was getting ahead of the game for that moment where I had to win an interview, because that's the key. You can be the best coach in the world. You can have a name because you've been a fantastic ex-player, which obviously I didn't have a huge name, certainly outside the Southwest. Even more important to get these contacts really that you can rely on and you can call on and trust. Really, it's not about using them, it's about working with them, and like I say, having that ability to share, but also draw on their experience at key times.
How did you go around kind of doing that? And was there any barriers for you? And what I mean by barriers, like what you were saying, I know how hard it is to do that for most people, because either sometimes there's that internal resistance to say, oh, I don't want to reach out because either I should know myself, or I don't want to get the rejection. You know, how did you go about kind of reaching out to people?
I think my first rule, and if I've got any advice for young coaches looking to build their network of mentors, it would be always ask for advice, but never ask for a favour. And I think that was key for me. Just for example, the likes of Kenny Dalglish, who's been absolutely fantastic with me, is an unbelievable person first and foremost, but obviously very, very experienced in football. And more importantly, leadership. Kenny Dalglish would have been asked, builds a rapport with someone, and then probably maybe 1-2 weeks later, the ticket request starts coming, the autographs, the bits and bobs. So I always felt that every time I met somebody like Kenny, it was important for me to be able to earn his trust, because if I want him to open up on his career and how he could help guide me in my career, it was so important that trust element was there. And you know what it's like when you sort of start building a rapport for someone, and then you're waiting, and then they ask for the big favour. Here we go. So if that never comes, I always feel that person becomes more invested in you as an individual, rather than waiting for what's he going to ask for.
I love that what you said. You know, it's ask for advice, not a favour, and it's just a great mantra to have, I think, isn't it? So, where do you think did you develop that yourself, or did you pick that up? Did you notice that from anyone?
I developed that myself, actually.
Yeah,
I think that like just through being around. Obviously, I had a front row seat in my dad's career, and what it's put me in different situations and scenarios where I've dealt with all walks of life, like from multi millionaires and billionaires, to family that never had money. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, totally.
We've been able to work sort of across the spectrum. Dad, when he was in Latvia, for example, we lived out there for a couple of years, was a very different dynamic to something we've been used to. And again, he was involved in all the sort of top brass of the country, let alone football. So that was very interesting. So I think it gives you the ability to communicate on all levels. And I think that's the key. We're always judged by the quality of our communication, and then also the authenticity of that. And you can't be a fraud. You can't fake it, particularly when you're speaking to billionaires, for example, that are very used to being asked for something the other day.
I think, being authentic and, the congruency of your message and the communication is just so important. Now that you're, and I think when I first met you, it was in Oldham you was it managing quite a few years ago.
Yeah, well, and manager at 31, which was an education, that's for sure.
Yeah, and what's been? I suppose what I'm thinking is, what's been now? Because you've had so much experience just to this point. What's been the lessons you've learned over the last 8 years or so, and actually been coaching and managing?
Yeah, I think you're just trying to work towards that mastery as a coach. I think certainly the people piece is huge, and the higher you go up, the more relevant that becomes, particularly because of the amount of money that's involved.
Yeah.
You're now dealing with a lot of external pressures, social media, clickbait. A storm can brew very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Therefore, you've got to be able to understand at what point do you need to push, at what battle do you need to let go by, take a punch on the nose for the greater good, and at what point do you need to really, really be strong. So again, it comes down really to trying to master that emotional intelligence, not only of yourself but of other people, and read and recognise signs. Interesting, I was just watching Sergio Ramos, the little Amazon documentary, and it's amazing how footballers reveal all to the masseur, right? Just thinking to myself there, do you know what, our masseurs at Bristol City, we should put them on sports psychology courses. Guys, and this is so important now in this modern world, to be able to reframe an individual. And it's something that we've worked on as a football club with our staff, because everybody's got various situations and scenarios going on in life, but the thing about football is obviously you've got to drive performance. You've got to show empathy, and that empathy, sympathy, communication can often get sort of almost sort of misguided in someone's mind. So to be able to coach empathy is important in a staff environment.
I think that hugely, you know, just basically on the area that I work in, and you know, it's the same on the mental side and the emotional intelligence side of coaches, you know, and I always try to remind coaches what it's like to learn something, you know, that what it's like to go right the way back and you make a mistake. What is it like when you're scared? Because I think it's very different. It's very easy sometimes especially once you've had the experience, to lose a little bit of that empathy of what someone's going through. And
no, I couldn't agree more. I think like it's a fine line, because as a coach, you got to have two hats at least. You know? One has to be showing the love and the compassion for the individual, and that they have to trust that 100% you're invested in their future. And that has to be an absolute bedrock of the coach tutor, if you like, relationship. But on the other side, you've got to be extremely sort of strong in driving performance. And that's a delicate balance, actually. And often, again, misinterpreted by the player. So part of the quality of the coach, I believe, is the way they communicate with those different hats on. And at one point, you've got to be able to put your arm around somebody because they've got a private problem. 10 minutes later, demand like top class execution on the training pitch. And to be able to move mentally that shift from human to performer is something really that's an art form.
I think that's a great way to describe it, as an art form, because it is that. I was speaking to, you know, earlier before, you know, we came on live, about speaking to Hugh MacDonald, the journalist, and he was describing the dressing room as, you know, he was laughing because people say, oh, footballers are pampered and this and that, and he said what you've got is a dressing room that's primal. And he wasn't speaking just about the relationships, he was speaking about what you're describing is everyone is judged in so many different ways. There's people coming up that would take your place. You know, you've got a limited shelf life. You know, the manager's coming in. And from there, you could see there's so many dynamics as a head coach or a manager as a coach. You have to manage, isn't it? You have to. And it comes down to what you're describing superbly is the quality of your communications and the quality of your ability to develop human relationships. How did you find that transition from player to coach? Because I know quite a few boys find that quite hard, to be one of the boys to the guy that makes a tough decision.
Yeah, that was, I think it's something I'd prepared for mentally. I'd been a captain in various dressing rooms and always had that sort of leadership mantra, if you like. But it doesn't change the fact that it's very, very new and unique, and the problems that are coming into you. As any football manager, confrontation will find you.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really want to be looking for confrontation. I guarantee it will find you. Just for example, one of my very, very good friends, you'll know because I was also on the A licence with Christie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so when I went down to Oldham, having just done the coaching licence, the first thing I had to do was say to him, who was also a friend, and Chris was a player at the time at Oldham, was to pull him in the office and say, look, I love you, but I think your legs are gone.
Yeah.
You're not going to play, but please be my voice in the dressing room and almost act like a first team coach.
Yeah.
And that was like, I remember the fear, if you like, going into that conversation, thinking like, am I making the right decision? Because we was in a relegation battle. 2, this is a friend of mine that's older than me, that's also on the same coaching journey. Now all of a sudden I'm his boss. And as it turned out, Chris Iwalumu, fantastic lad.
Yeah.
And it worked perfectly. But to deliver it, I mean, I'll tell you a little funny story. I had all these dreams and these sort of like the way I wanted to play football and the sort of philosophy that I wanted to go out with. So I had one day before my first game to coach this Oldham side. So I set a group of mannequins up. So it was 10 mannequins plus 1 goalkeeper that we was playing against. And what I wanted to work on was a few patterns of play and rotation.
Yeah.
So I said, right, boys, that's the team. Let's go through a few patterns, which we did. And after 5 minutes, we hadn't scored a goal. And I'm thinking to myself, lads, come in. Look, we're in 5 minutes against the mannequins and 1 scored. Anyway, so next 5 minutes, working on the patterns, I'm getting all the detail in. I'm really enjoying it, but we still haven't scored. Now the keepers are pulling off worldies. I pull them in again after 5 minutes. I'm like, lads, like, what? Seriously, we're playing against mannequins and 1 goalkeeper. It's 0-0. Right, after 10 minutes. So I said, right, last pattern, because I don't want to kill anyone's confidence. Bit of a rotation, slam it back to the goalkeeper from the midfielder, and we'll play from there. So it went bosh, 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 lovely, went for the midfielder. He slammed it back to our goalkeeper, came off a mannequin, deflected and went in. We got beat 1-0 by the mannequins in 12 minutes.
Brilliant, beaten by the mannequins.
I thought to myself, well, surely my career's got to go up from that point. And, the next day we beat Hartlepool 3-0 and that was the journey. But
super.
I remember that first team talk, like the sort of nerves that, and that's why I'm so interested. Obviously, we've talked offline about these communication classes. Because like, if you're a world-class communicator, you've got a better chance of longevity.
And I agree. And you've used, and I've seen you speaking to people, and I've seen you around people, and you realise the importance of empathy and communication and being able to understand people. And I think it's just such a vital skill. I think for all of us, whether it's football or anything you do, and it's a skill, isn't it? It is a skill, undoubtedly. But also, I love how you describe the nervousness, before you speak. Because some people say to me, you must, because you speak in front of people all the time, you must just do it. And of course, I'm always pretty nervous before I speak to people, because that nervous energy. But then once you get going, if you've thought about it, and you've thought about who's in the audience and connecting with them, I think it becomes easier. And that's the paradox, I think, about communicating and speaking, is the more you think about yourself, the more nervous you get.
Yeah.
Do you find that in a dressing room or getting?
Yeah, I think the dressing room is an unbelievable dynamic, because it's something that I haven't mastered without question of a doubt. I mean, I've managed probably 380 odd games now, and 380 of them I've not wanted to go in after the game. I have. And that's partly due to expectation, due to actually probably a weakness, if you like, in terms of you feel like you've got to put a stop to the game. But certainly before the game, everything is key. The way you communicate, are you going to horse whisper with certain players? You've got to recognise the mood, whether that needs lifting. Certain individuals might be out of their optimal performance state, in which case you've got to give them a shot of anxiety or maybe a shot of confidence. At half time, obviously, it's a very different dynamic.
Yeah.
You're coming in, maybe you're up and you've got to get 2 or 3 tactical points to keep focused. At that point, I would use potentially 3 or 4 times a season that sort of hairdryer, waking the chimp. But truly, you're only getting maybe 10 minutes out of that, and that's you've built up a rapport. And they hate you for 10 minutes. You might just get them out of an anxiety or something, or an overconfidence or a complacency that they need to perform in the second half. And then, of course, you've got the criticism. You just alluded there to the fact that it's a troop, and almost like primal mentality. And this era and this sort of modern player, they don't want to be dug out. Front of the troop. So I think it's really important to, if you're going to criticise, you're criticising the action and not the man. Because you will find, as a coach on a game on Saturday, come Monday, you'll find them as you leave them. I think that's really important. And now, obviously, we've got a lot of various communication technologies that we use, and sometimes you've got to understand the player, that it's better to maybe write a little WhatsApp message on the performance and how we're going to work on Monday to dig that person out in the group. Make no mistake, I'm no expert in that field, but I'm trying to be, because I understand how important it is for not only the game that you're playing, but for the game and the sequence of games forward.
I think you're very eloquent about that, Lee, because what I notice, for me, you know, I love football, and out with football, I think that's why it's the global game it is. It's an amplification, isn't it, of life, everything. And you know, the dressing room after is if, you know, whether you win, lose or draw, it's an amplification of the feelings people have in 7 days into that little period. You know, and even when we're speaking, you know, it reminds me as a coach and as a manager, the emotional intelligence and the resilience you have to deal with that week in, week out. How have you, I suppose, you know, you've said earlier you've been on the hamster wheel. How have you found, you know, almost taking a breath yourself through the week? Have you found that difficult, or have you had strategies to deal with it?
I think, like for me, the organisational process is the key to that. Because as a manager, you feel like your work's never done. There's always something else that you can do. There's always bridges to build. There's always rapports to work on. There's always philosophy, like creating sessions, like being better with the media, managing up. A lot of people, they can go into management and be a very good football coach. Actually, it's probably 10-15% of the actual job. So managing up is huge. You can't manage up in football. You're not going to last very long. And it's just it's a very versatile skill set that you need. But also it's very interesting. So for me, the organisational process of A, the coaching, but B, managing your life has got to be top. If it's not, some element of your life will fall or fail, whether that be your family life, your health, your weight. So try and get that balance. Is not easy, but if you can master that, you've got a real chance of maybe not being happy, because a lot of people are focused by living your life in a way that doesn't affect others negatively. And early on in my career, I found that difficult, particularly the family life, because football means everything. You come home after a bad result, and often you're bringing it home. So a lot of what I've done is built on almost like a post-traumatic stress type thing, and to be able to, it's not like a post-traumatic stress that you get in the army, but it's the same chemical reaction. You then got to come through quickly to be able to go through the process in a positive way. Genius comes out of that. So to not affect the people around you, and observe it in a negative way. And I think that is a really deep discipline that you've got as an individual with helping others. And I guarantee you, all the coaches that have been in that sort of hot seat, if you like, under the microscope, will have had that in their own various forms. Some will come out of it better than others. But for me, that's the difference. Where you can be resilient enough and disciplined in your life to be able to control that mindset and still perform, whether it be as a player or as a coach, then you're going to have a long, happy career.
Brilliant. So, just, you know, it's just a lot of gold in there, what we're speaking about, Lee, for other kind of coaches and players that want to go into the coaching pathway as well. Just to finish with, would there be any kind of key message you would have now for someone that's just starting their coaching journey?
I would say be prepared, first and foremost. And your confidence will come from your preparation without question of a doubt. So, like, to have a plan, to keep redefining that plan on every step of the journey, and to make sure that you're relentless in that pursuit of excellence for your own development. You've got to be selfish in one sense, but not by taking others down. So never knock others down to propel yourself, but believe in your own sort of destiny, if you like, and try and create that destiny. And I think what comes from that is, if you've got that goal, and I'm a big believer in goal setting, both on a daily basis and on a sort of a lifeline, if you like, as time goes on, because I believe it channels the mind and it focuses those little moments where you can seek opportunity and use them to enhance your family's life or your own career. So for me, it would be prepared. Preparation obviously gives you that confidence, and just speak to as many people as possible that are more experienced than you in their field. And that doesn't have to be football, that could be business or people in life.
Brilliant. So thanks very much for all your time, and that James of wisdom, I would have to say, as well, for the coaches there, because I think what you articulate brilliantly and you actually epitomise there is that learning, that ability to be curious. And I see it in you know, all coaches that are not just successful, but whatever they turn their hand to, they're willing to put the hours in, and they're curious about what's next. And I don't think anyone can be really successful without that trait that you've got as well. And I don't think there is any shortcuts. So I think that's brilliant kind of, not just information, but a kind of guideline for people that are starting their journey. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and also wish you all the best when you kick off again. So.
And looking forward to the run-in. And first of all, again, thanks for inviting me for this little chat. I've enjoyed it, and hopefully, if one or two people can take one or two bits of, like you say, little gems out of this, then we'd have helped.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lee. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.